listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us spend some time with you. I am being monitored and supervised.
Yes, you are. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Absolutely. If you haven't been to GiveGod90.com lately, you may want to check that out. Author Jerry Mitchell's Where the Books Are Sold. And if you... Yes, it makes noise when it does that. If you... I'm sorry, everyone. If you like what you hear, just a friendly reminder, hit those share buttons, like buttons, all those things, because it makes it easier for people to find us, just like you did. And hopefully all the advertisements are done. So, a lot of people say, oh, the Bible can answer any question you might have. Really? Let's find out, right? I was asked not too long ago, can the Bible tell us what the weather will be? And, my short answer is, well, yes, but just like always, there's some things we need to look at to really grasp an understanding of what's happening and what's going on, right? And I want to start by saying that because our Creator doesn't change and He is consistent, His creation is also consistent. And the weather in any given climate should have a consistent weather pattern as well, right? For instance, in a dry desert type of climate, we know there's going to be very little rain. And a lot of times this is often because of terrain and topography. But yet in the desert, there is always a season of rainfall. In wetter climates, there can be seasons of no rain, and we tend to consider that a drought or a dry season. The very basic weather patterns tend to stay the same. In a dry climate, that, like in Arizona, there's what they call the monsoon season. And in wetter climates, there's a dry season. So, where we live now, typically June, July are drier than April and May, right? So, you have these weather patterns as they come into play. And we need to also remember, and this is important, that the people who wrote the Bible and the people who were given the words to write, they lived in the northern hemisphere. So their observations and the things that were given to them are relayed to us from that point of view. So in the southern hemisphere, south of the equator, some things are going to be reversed. North of the equator, weather typically moves from west to east, with the exception of some storms that are steered by the trade winds. South of the equator, it's just the opposite. And we also need to consider what we call the Coriolis effect. And that describes how objects that are not connected to the ground seem to get deflected as they travel long distances around the Earth. That's a whole lot of science in just a few words, isn't it? But we have to remember that not everything is as it seems, because all of this is due to the rotation of the Earth. So the next thing we need to consider, we need to think about, is the difference between the regular weather patterns that we see, that we're used to, that we experience from season to season, the difference between that and the miracles that occur in the Bible and even today. And yes, our Creator does affect the weather when He decides there's a need to, right? He's able to hold back rain. He's able to stop the rotation of the earth when He chooses. And we see this outlined in Joshua, if you would like to read that passage.
That day the Lord allowed the Israelites to defeat the Amorites. And that day Joshua stood before all the people of Israel and said to the Lord, Sun, stand over Gibeon. Moon, stand over Gibeon. Moon, stand over the valley of Ajalon.
Close enough.
So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped until the people defeated their enemies. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky. It waited to go down for a full day. That has never happened at any time before that day or since. That was the day the Lord listened to a man. Truly, the Lord was fighting for Israel. Joshua chapter 10, verses 12 through 14.
So why did our Creator choose to allow Joshua's prayer and deliver that miracle? There's a theory, and this is only a theory because we don't know for sure. The Israelites were fighting on the sixth day. Joshua knew they would need more time to defeat the Amorites before the Sabbath, so he asked the Creator to stop the sun from going down so they wouldn't be fighting on Shabbat, on the Sabbath. Does that make sense? Absolutely makes sense. When these miracles happen, there is a good reason. Our Creator doesn't change, and He doesn't like His creation to change either. And here's the big but, right? Sin can and does have an effect on the weather, including Joshua asking for the sun to stand still until the enemies were defeated. You know, excuse me, when Joseph's brothers sold him and he was taken to Egypt, one of the miracles our Creator delivered was a famine in that part of the world. The famine was used to place Joseph in a very prominent position in Egypt, and it was also used to bring Joseph's family back together again. Okay? Very important to learn. But here's a passage that really makes it stand out if you'd like to read that next passage.
These are the words that the Lord spoke to Jeremiah about the time when there was no rain. The nation of Judah cries. Her cities are dying. They cry out for the land. A cry goes up to God from Jerusalem. The important men send their servants to get water. The servants go to the wells, but they find no water. So they return with empty jars. They are ashamed and embarrassed. They cover their heads in shame. The ground is dry and cracked open because no rain falls on the land. The farmers are upset and sad, so they cover their heads in shame. Even the mother deer in the field leaves her fawn. She does this because there is no grass. Wild turkeys stand on the bare hills, or wild donkeys stand on the bare hills. They sniff the wind like wild dogs, but their eyes are dull because there is no food. We know that we suffer because of our sins. Lord, do something to help us for the good of your name. We have left you many times. We have sinned against you. Jeremiah chapter 14, verses 1 through 7.
So we see our Creator will hold back rain to get our attention, right? He says, you've sinned. Now I'm going to get your attention. I'm going to make you hungry. And not only does mankind's sin affect mankind, it affects everything. It affects all creation on earth. It really doesn't have any effect on the moon or on Mars, but it affects all creation on earth. These miracles that we've just looked at interrupt the regular weather patterns we're used to experiencing and seeing, right? So these miracles are considered miracles just for that reason. It's something out of the ordinary. It's something that isn't or shouldn't be. It's something that we normally don't experience. But the good news is there are some regular rules that our Creator had put in place in His creation that guide these weather patterns that we see. Would you like to read that next passage?
Jesus answered, "When you see the sun set, you will know what the weather will be. If the sky is red, then you say we will have good weather. And in the morning, if the sky is dark and red, then you will say it will be a rainy day. You will see these signs in the skies, and you know what they mean. In the same way, you see the things that are happening now, but you don't know their meaning. Evil and sinful people ask for a miracle as a sign, but they have no sign. But they will have no sign, only the sign of Jonah. As Jonah was in the belly of the great fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man must be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. Then Jesus left them and went away." Matthew chapter 16, verses 2 through 4.
I grew up in the Mid-Atlantic region, okay, along the ocean. Our house was about a mile from the Atlantic Ocean. And there was a saying, red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning. The fishing boats, they understood what that meant. If the sky was red at night, fair weather followed. If the sky was red in the morning, they didn't want to go out because they knew it was going to storm. These atmospheric conditions are by design, and they're there to help us know what to expect. And there's another thing I learned when I was young about when it was going to rain. If there was dew on the grass in the morning, chances are it wasn't going to rain that day. But if the grass was dry in the morning, you could expect rain before the end of the day. Now, that might not work in every climate, but, we've lived in the high desert in Colorado where we didn't get much dew. But when you went out early enough and there was a little dampness on the grass, it typically didn't rain that day. If the grass was dry, there was a good chance, you're going to see a shower of rain or snow that day, sometimes hail, on the 5th of July. Where we lived, it was high. It was about 8,400 feet. So you never knew if you were going to get rain, snow, hail, sleet. It was all there. But you knew it was going to come. So there's a passage in Job that gives us some indication that God is in control of the weather, okay? And this is found throughout Scripture, but specifically here in Job, if you'd like to read that next portion.
Job, listen to this. Stop and notice God's miracles. Do you know how God controls the clouds and makes his lightning flash? Do you know how the clouds hang in the skies? Are they the miracles of God who knows everything? You suffer in your clothes when the land is made quiet by the hot south wind. You cannot stretch out the sky like God and make it look as hard as polished bronze. Job chapter 37, verses 14 through 18.
Okay. In the Northern Hemisphere, okay, this is where Job lived. When the wind blew out of the south, it made things warm, sometimes very, very hot, because the wind coming from the south brought warm, moist air, and it brings that up from the tropics. When the wind comes from the south, north of the equator, chances are you're going to see rain because the way the high and low pressure systems circulate. High pressure's passing, low pressure's moving in, bringing that rain, that's typically associated with that, right? It's a normal weather pattern. So the answer really is yes, the Bible can help us predict the weather. We know what's going to happen because it's written. It is written, right? But we need to remember sin does cause our Creator to get the attention of a nation. And he does this in various ways. And I probably should mention that what I'm talking about are natural weather occurrences and divine miracles. Okay? That's what we're looking at so far. But today, it seems we have developed ways that mankind can affect the weather. Things like cloud seeding, for instance. They modify certain cloud types to cause more rain than usual. It's been common knowledge since, before I was born. That's a long time ago now. A couple of weeks ago, Robert Kennedy Jr., who is the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the United States, was asked about the chemical trails we see on some days. Those long streaks of white cloud-looking things in the sky that, when I was young, they were called condensation trails because sometimes when the atmospheric conditions were correct, the airplanes would fly and you'd have these short condensation trails. Today, we look up and we see these long trails of white something. And yes, I know it's a conspiracy theory, okay? But it might not be theory any longer. He was asked about these things. Now, his answer to me speaks volumes. The first thing he said was, "That's not my agency doing that." He didn't say it wasn't happening. He didn't say it wasn't a real thing. He said it was from a different government agency in the United States. I just saw something earlier today where Great Britain is debating doing these same things. So yes, it's apparently real. We have ways of manipulating certain weather conditions and certain atmospheric conditions. We just do. We can affect the weather with things like microwaves, radar, various other techniques, and they're doing it all the time. You think I'm nuts? Start looking around. Look at the people who are in charge of these things and listen to what they say. I have. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, especially when I look at the people who know what's going on and listen to their answers and say, ooh, they didn't say no. They didn't say it's not happening. They didn't say it's not real. They just said it's from a different agency. That tells me quite a bit. The writers of the Bible spend a great amount of time writing about the weather. I think it's over 50 times they mention the weather specifically. Rain is mentioned far more often than anything else. But it's not like weather is not important to God. He's the one who is supposed to control the weather. He's the one who says, it's time for lightning. It's time for hail. It's time for this. It's time for that. It's not ours to choose. My question is it any wonder for those who choose to reject the Creator? Is it any wonder for these folks to attempt to manipulate God's control over the weather and say, oh, look what we can do. We're just as good as God. Now, in my opinion, doesn't mean anything. Doesn't have to be your opinion. Something to think about. But in my opinion, I would say that trying to control the weather and our global climate is nothing more or less than an attempt to discredit our Creator, and it deserves the same contempt as the Tower of Babel. God wouldn't allow us to reach heaven under our own power. He confused the language to stop it. I don't know what he's going to do to these folks who attempt to manipulate the weather. But I do know that he has given us certain atmospheric conditions to look for and to see and to look at and remember and say, oh, when this happens, it's, the weather will be this way. When that happens, the weather will be that way. I'm not sure what he's going to do to these evil people who think they can control his creation, like manipulate the weather. But what I do know is I would not want to be in their shoes come Judgment Day. That's just not someplace you want to be. Not in their shoes on Judgment Day. Observing the weather if we are willing. If we are willing. All you have to do is open a window and look outside. Start watching it. Start seeing it. Take notice of what's going on. Does the Bible predict the weather? It doesn't exactly predict it, but it can absolutely say, because you're seeing this, you can expect something to happen. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Calm seas and fair winds, right? That's what we're looking for. I'm not sure we're going to get calm seas and fair winds where we are right now. And I'm not talking about the weather. Think about these things. If mankind has the ability to affect weather, is it any different than mankind's attempt to reach heaven under their own power? I don't see a lot of difference. Our Creator shows us these things and says, this is how I designed it. And this is how it's going to be. If you try to change it, it might not go so well for you. And that's putting it mildly. Just something to think about until next time.
Until next time.
And until then, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Absolutely.